My name is Juliette Carmichael, and I'm 28 years old. As I stood on the stage of the Charleston Grand Hotel in a crimson gown that cost more than most cars, fingers curled around the microphone, I knew tonight would change everything. Just feet away sat my parents, Douglas and Eleanor Carmichael, smiling proudly at their guests, utterly unaware that the foundation of their carefully manufactured world was about to collapse. Because of me. But to understand how I ended up here, you have to go back 6 months. Back to the moment they decided to break me, in the name of control. I was born into power, wealth, and expectation. The Carmichaels weren't just any Southern family. We were legacy. Our estate, Waverly House, sat atop the most prestigious hill in Charleston's historic quarter. My father transformed his father's modest real estate firm into Carmichael Group, a billion-dollar development empire. My mother, Eleanor, crafted our social rise with the discipline of a military general, down to which china pattern we used for brunch and which garden roses matched the drapes. I was the golden daughter, educated at Duke, then an MBA from Georgetown, groomed for appearances, curated for headlines. I knew how to host, how to charm, how to calculate EBITDA and give the perfect toast, usually in heels, rarely with genuine joy. My sister Phoebe, 5 years younger, tried to follow in my shadow but often became a pawn in our mother's constant power plays. One week I was the favorite, the next, Phoebe was the heir apparent. Despite the pedestal, I longed for something of my own. So I opened a boutique in the French Quarter, Maison Jules, focused on curating emerging Southern designers. It wasn't a vanity project. It was a calculated niche venture. I found a prime location, built an aesthetic brand, and launched with help from a business partner named Renee Caldwell, a woman introduced to me through my parents' longtime associate, William Greer. For 3 glorious months, Maison Jules buzzed. Fashion editors, influencers, and even a few celebrities visited. We hosted trunk shows and were gaining traction in the Southeast market. Then came the call. "Our accounts are empty," said our accountant, voice shaky. "Nearly $300,000 gone." Renee had vanished. She falsified inventory logs, wired money into fake vendor accounts, and ghosted. By the time the authorities caught up, she was already in Europe, operating under a different name. The Charleston Chronicle ran the story in their business section with a humiliating headline, "Carmichael Daughter Scammed in Designer Scheme." I thought the worst part was the betrayal. I was wrong. My parents were livid. But not about the loss, about the embarrassment. "You made us look like fools," my father spat at me during a Sunday dinner. Mother didn't yell. She did worse. She looked me over like I was a disappointing garment returned to the store. "You'll move back to the house. We've already reclaimed the condo." They canceled my credit cards, repossessed the BMW. My closet full of Dior and Carolina Herrera was suddenly irrelevant. Instead, they handed me the keys to a 10-year-old sedan and told me to be grateful. At family events, I became an example of what not to do. Every success of a third cousin was met with, "See? They understand their lane." They called it a learning period. I called it a sentence. Weeks passed in silent exile. I applied for jobs in fashion houses, publishing, even PR firms. Every rejection echoed louder than the last. I knew the truth. They were quietly closing doors. Their network, once my safety net, had become a web I was trapped in. Then, one Tuesday, I was summoned. I found my parents seated in Waverly House's formal sitting room, their posture rigid. A man stood near the fireplace, unassuming, in a gray suit with no remarkable features. "This is Nathan Bell," my mother said with artificial warmth. "He's agreed to marry you." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Your situation is unsustainable," my father said, rubbing his temples. "Nathan is the son of our attorney. He's respectable, quiet, practical. You're marrying me off like it's the 1800s. I said, incredulous. If you refuse, my mother interrupted coldly, you leave this house with nothing, no support, no name, no introductions. You'll see how far your boutique failure carries you in Charleston without the Carmichael name. Nathan extended his hand. I didn't take it. This is insane. It's reality, she replied. This match will give you structure. A job at the firm, a starter apartment, a respectable husband. I fled to Phoebe's room. She sat cross-legged on her bed, looking like she'd seen this coming. They've been planning it for weeks, she whispered. They want to rebrand you as the humbled daughter who fell, learned her lesson, and settled down. With him? I scoffed. He's not awful, she shrugged. Just forgettable. That's the point. 3 days later, I was seated across from Nathan Bell at a mid-tier seafood restaurant. He wore the same gray suit. He drove a battered Civic. He talked about budgeting, the importance of modesty, and seemed genuinely indifferent to my scorn. I'm not pretending this is ideal, he said, but it's practical. So that's it? No love, no compatibility, just function? Function is better than chaos. After dinner, he showed me his apartment. It was functional, clean, sparse, lifeless. As I stood there, surrounded by beige walls and dull furniture, I realized I had reached the bottom of whatever ladder my family had built for me. I was their fallen princess. And they expected me to stay fallen. But what they didn't realize? That buried beneath all their shame and rules and punishments was a woman quietly getting ready to rise, and none of them saw what was coming next. The wedding was exactly what my mother envisioned for a daughter in disgrace. Tasteful, modest, and utterly forgettable. Held in our garden at Waverly House, the guest list was trimmed to 50. There were no press releases, no designer couture, no parade of Charleston's elite. Just white roses, muted linens, and a string quartet playing safe classical selections that made the whole thing feel like an apology in floral form. I wore a sensible ivory sheath dress chosen by my mother, one that screamed redemption arc more than bridal joy. My pearl earrings were borrowed from Phoebe. My shoes? Kitten heels, for humility. Nathan stood waiting at the altar in a plain gray suit, 1 step above business casual, and 3 steps beneath what any woman dreams of seeing on her wedding day. He looked calm, collected, almost eerily comfortable with the entire charade. When I reached him, he leaned in and whispered, "Just breathe." It was the first human thing he'd said to me since our engagement had been negotiated like a real estate deal. After a reception filled with forced smiles and stilted toasts, we left in his well-worn Honda Civic, not the vintage Rolls-Royce that had carried my cousin Charlotte to her lavish ceremony 2 years prior. No tropical honeymoon either. Just a weekend in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, at a quaint bed and breakfast my mother found on TripAdvisor. Our new apartment, a wedding gift from my parents, was on the 3rd floor of a converted factory in a gentrifying part of Charleston. It had popcorn ceilings, creaky floors, and a persistent smell of lemon cleaner. The furniture? Neutral, uninspired, functional. Mother had chosen every piece, down to the gray throw pillows that matched Nathan's personality. The master bedroom featured 2 twin beds, placed on opposite sides of the room like we were roommates in a conservative boarding school. "Home sweet home," Nathan said, as he dropped our bags in the living room, utterly serious. "This isn't a home," I muttered. "It's a holding cell." Monday came too fast. I reported to Carmichael Group to begin my assigned role as administrative support. Not marketing, not strategy. Certainly not anything that reflected my degrees or experience. I was tasked with fetching coffee, filing client records, and scheduling meetings for people who once asked for my opinion at board luncheons. My new supervisor, Karen, made no effort to hide her smugness. Just because you're a Carmichael doesn't mean the rules don't apply, she said on my first day. You'll follow procedure like everyone else here. The irony? I always had. I just stopped letting the family name be my only value. Nathan, meanwhile, left early each morning for his job as a junior financial consultant at a boutique firm in Mount Pleasant. He came home at 6 sharp, dropped his keys in a little ceramic dish, and retreated to his home office, which he kept locked. He cooked plain meals, grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, brown rice. He read economic journals. He kept the thermostat at a rigid 72 degrees. Our conversations were brief and efficient. I can show you how to budget, he offered one night, watching me struggle to navigate a grocery list. Why aren't you more upset about this? I asked, waving a hand around our beige prison. I've lived with less, he replied. His tone was neither bitter nor boastful, just matter of fact. And it made me pause. One Saturday, Phoebe came to visit. She stepped into our apartment, heels clicking on the scuffed laminate floors, eyes darting to the minimal decor. It's not awful, she said slowly, opening cabinets and drawers. It has character. It has plumbing issues, I corrected, pouring us wine. She laughed. And yet, you seem different. You're not wearing Chanel. Your hair isn't perfect, but you look alive. Alive? I echoed. Yeah, less filtered. She leaned in, dropping her voice. I think he's watching you. I furrowed my brows. Nathan? Oh, watching me how? Phoebe nodded toward the locked office. I think he's hiding something. He's too calm, too in control. It's like he's pretending to be average. The next day, I noticed it too. Nathan received a package, a sleek black box with no return address. He took it directly into his office. When I peeked under the door crack later, I spotted what looked like multiple monitors glowing behind the desk, and then there were the calls. He made them late at night, when he thought I was asleep. I crept to the door one evening and listened. The Tokyo deal needs to be finalized before market opens, he said in a clipped, commanding voice. Run the numbers again. I want a 10% buffer on the real estate side. This was not a junior consultant. I froze. Later that week, I confronted him. Who are you really? He blinked once. Excuse me? You talk like a CEO, not a financial analyst, I said, arms crossed. And that office of yours? It's not a hobby setup. It's a war room. He sighed. Then, with no ceremony, he pulled out a drawer from the coffee table, handed me a worn business magazine, and said, Read the article on page 38. I flipped to the feature, The Ghost in the Market, the reclusive billionaire behind Bell and Ash Capital. The article described a private equity firm with unmatched performance, strategic acquisitions across tech and real estate, and a CEO who refused all interviews and kept his identity hidden. In the photo, just a silhouette with the initials NB. I looked up at him, breath shallow. You're him, I whispered. Nathan Bell, CEO of Bell and Ash. He nodded. And I married a billionaire pretending to be a ghost. I stared at Nathan. No, Nathan Bell, as if seeing him for the first time. The plain suits, the quiet demeanor, the beige apartment, they were all part of an act. But the man sitting across from me now wasn't pretending anymore. I knew your family, he said calmly, long before they ever knew me. I blinked. What does that mean? Nathan stood and walked toward his locked home office. For the first time since we moved in, he left the door open. I followed. It was like stepping into a different universe. 3 widescreen monitors glowed across a sleek black desk. A Bloomberg terminal blinked beside a high-performance server tower. Financial graphs and market tickers danced across the screens. Bookshelves lined the walls. Titles on economics, risk strategy, mergers, and acquisitions. This wasn't the office of a junior consultant. This was Command Central. He gestured for me to sit. This is the real me. Nathan explained everything. He grew up in a working-class neighborhood in Pittsburgh, the son of a single mother who cleaned office buildings at night and took community college classes by day. He earned scholarships, coded his first market-tracking algorithm at 19, and by 24 had quietly launched Bell & Ash Capital, a private equity firm known for ruthless precision, stealth acquisitions, and near-psychic timing. "I stayed in the shadows by design," he said. "I've seen what power does to people, how it distorts relationships, makes you a target. I wanted to build something powerful without becoming public currency." I was still reeling. "So why? Me? Why marry me?" He didn't flinch. "When your parents approached my father's law firm with the idea of arranging your marriage to someone humble and respectable, it got back to me. And I saw an opportunity." "To what? Pity me? Study me?" I snapped. "To understand the Carmichaels from the inside," he said, voice low. "Because I was considering a major acquisition, a development deal that would put me in partnership, or opposition, with your family." He paused, then added, "But what I found was something else." Nathan turned one of the monitors toward me. With a few keystrokes, he pulled up documents, account ledgers, bank transfers, emails. "This is Renee Caldwell, your ex-partner," he said. "She's used 3 other names in the last 5 years: Rita Chase, Rachel Collins, and Regina Clark. All tied to boutique scams in Austin, Denver, and Charlotte. Each time, she partnered with women from influential families." I felt my blood run cold. "And the common denominator?" Nathan tapped the screen. "Each one was referred by a local business associate connected to the family, your family." He pulled up more files. Wire transfers from Eleanor Carmichael's foundation to a nonprofit that funneled money directly to one of Renee's aliases. "That's circumstantial," I muttered, though my voice shook. Nathan looked me dead in the eye. "It's not. 2 weeks before she partnered with you, your mother's foundation made a $50,000 donation to a fake organization run by Renee's shell company. Then, after the embezzlement, another $75,000 was sent, disguised as an international scholarship grant." I felt like the floor was tilting beneath me. "They set me up," I whispered. Nathan nodded. "They created the failure, controlled the fallout, then swooped in with an arranged marriage to reclaim the narrative. It wasn't just punishment, Juliette. It was control." I couldn't speak. Every humiliating moment, being cut off, laughed at, blamed in public, wasn't an unfortunate consequence. It was intentional. "They wanted to clip your wings," Nathan said gently. "Your boutique was succeeding. Your brand was gaining traction. That threatened your parents' grip." He paused. "So they crushed it." Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "You've known all this for months?" I asked. "I suspected before we got married. I confirmed it 3 months ago." "Then why didn't you tell me?" Nathan leaned forward, his voice quieter now. "Because you needed to rediscover your strength first. If I had handed you the truth too early, it would have broken you more." That night, we sat in silence for hours, me processing, Nathan giving me space. Eventually, I asked, "So now what? What do I do with this?" His answer came without hesitation. "That depends on what you want. Revenge, reclamation, freedom. The path is yours." It was the first time in my life someone asked me what I wanted, without presuming to already know the answer. I exhaled slowly. "I want justice, and I want my name back." Nathan smiled. "Then we begin now." Over the next few days, everything changed. Our beige apartment became a war room. Financial documents were printed and categorized, call logs, emails, wire transfers. Nathan connected me with his mentor, Grace Latimer, a former SEC investigator and now his firm's chief compliance officer. "Your boutique's financials were sound," she told me after reviewing my original plan. "With 6 more months and modest investment, you would have hit profit margin targets. This wasn't incompetence, it was deliberate sabotage." That small validation made me cry. Not out of weakness, but relief. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't stupid. I was targeted. Meanwhile, Phoebe became an unexpected ally. One evening over coffee, I told her everything. She didn't look surprised. "I always wondered how Renee passed the background checks," she whispered. "Last year, I overheard Mom and William arguing about handling Juliette's situation, but I didn't understand what it meant. Do you believe me now?" "I believed you before," she said, "but I didn't have proof." She leaned in, eyes determined. "Now you do." Together, we formed a plan. We had a stage, a date, an audience. Our parents' 40th anniversary gala just 2 weeks away. A celebration of love and legacy? Perfect. We would turn it into a reckoning. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be planning the downfall of my own family's reputation at their 40th anniversary gala, I would have laughed. Or cried. Probably both. But as I stood in our apartment-turned-strategy bunker, staring at whiteboards covered in timelines, banking records, and communication logs, I didn't feel broken. I felt focused. Nathan stood beside me, calm and composed as always, but there was something different in his eyes now. Respect. Not for the heiress my family tried to sculpt, but for the woman I had become through their sabotage. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming my name. The first step was the data. Grace Latimer, with her crisp blazers and surgical intellect, helped compile a digital evidence package that would be bulletproof. "Chronology is key," she said, pointing to a timeline. "You need to prove premeditation. This wasn't a business deal gone wrong. This was a takedown." We traced Eleanor's foundation transfers, cross-referenced William Greer's email exchanges with Renee Caldwell. We even found surveillance photos of Renee meeting with William, photos Nathan's security team captured during a chance encounter in Atlanta. Then came the supporting testimony. Grace pulled in 2 fashion consultants who had independently assessed Maison Jules during its early success. "With proper backing," one said, "this boutique would have been a Southeast anchor for emerging designers." Their statements, captured on video, confirmed what I always knew. I was never a failure. I was sabotaged to maintain someone else's control. But facts weren't enough. We needed to control the narrative. So we turned to James Wilson, Nathan's head of security, a calm, sharp-eyed man who once led crisis response for a Fortune 50 firm. He studied the Four Seasons ballroom layout and got us access to the venue's AV systems through a subcontractor who owed him a favor. "Full access to the projection screens, audio system, and remote override," he said. "No one will be able to cut your mic or kill the feed." Meanwhile, Nathan quietly leaked our attendance to business journalists, just enough to pique curiosity without giving away the plot. He also arranged for several Aurora Capital board members to be in the room, under the guise of social courtesy. Every move was deliberate, every piece in place. While the professionals strategized, I focused on something I hadn't in months: my appearance. Not for vanity, for power. Nathan offered me his black card and said, "Buy what makes you feel unstoppable." But I didn't go back to my old designer boutiques. I went to see Olivia Kwan, a local designer I'd championed at Maison Jules before the collapse. She greeted me with a warm hug and a shocked expression. "I tried to call you for months," she said. "Your mother's assistant always said you were unavailable." That stung more than I expected. They had even isolated me from my own allies. Olivia listened as I told her the truth, her eyes widening with each revelation. "Let me design you something," she said fiercely. "Something they'll never forget." 2 weeks later, I slipped into a custom crimson silk gown with architectural lines that hugged strength, not submission. A cape collar flowed like armor, the fabric both elegant and commanding. "This isn't a dress," Olivia said during the final fitting. "This is your declaration." Phoebe, meanwhile, was laying the groundwork inside Waverly House. "Mom's obsessed with the gala schedule," she reported. "William's giving the opening toast. You're slotted for a short reconciliation speech, a 90-second redemption arc." I laughed bitterly. Perfect. She also invited Renee as a guest. My smile dropped. She's still working with her? Either that or trying to rub it in your face, maybe both. Phoebe paused, lowering her voice. "There's something else. I found pictures. Renee with 2 different hairstyles, different names, all linked to nonprofits tied to Mom's foundation. It's worse than you thought." She looked up, eyes glassy. "They didn't just sabotage your career. They used charitable funds to do it." As the gala approached, I worked with Grace and James on final preparations. Grace coached me on public speaking under pressure. "Your mother will try to interrupt," she warned. "Your father may claim health issues. Stay focused. Stick to the facts." James taught me how to spot and diffuse psychological tactics. "Silence after truth is powerful. Don't fill it with apologies." Nathan, meanwhile, grew quieter. Less the CEO, more the man who had watched me rediscover myself one late-night breakdown at a time. He pulled me aside one evening as we reviewed our evidence. "I need to say this now," he said, "before it all explodes." I looked up from the laptop. "This started as an investigation," he said, "a calculated risk, but somewhere along the way, it became real." He hesitated, then added, "You became real. Not just the daughter of a name I needed to assess, but a woman who made me want to stop hiding." I didn't know what to say, so I just took his hand. No more contracts, no more silence, just truth. The night before the gala, we held a private meeting with our small team: Nathan, Grace, James, Olivia, Phoebe, and me. Evidence? Check. Presentation? Loaded on a secure flash drive. Digital backups? Distributed. AV access? Confirmed. Exit strategy? Planned. We didn't know how it would land, what chaos would follow. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. Because I was ready. I sat by the window that night, watching the Charleston skyline glow against the dark river. One last time, I asked myself, was it worth it? The answer came with startling clarity. Yes, I'd been trained my whole life to perform, to maintain appearances, but that version of me was never mine. Tomorrow, I would stand in front of everyone who thought they understood me and show them what they never saw. A woman who didn't just survive betrayal. She rose from it. The Four Seasons Charleston ballroom gleamed with elegance and expectation. White orchids draped every surface. Champagne flutes clinked gently beneath a canopy of crystal chandeliers. A string quartet played Bach as Charleston's elite filed in, dressed in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, unaware that they were about to witness a legacy shatter in real time. My mother, Eleanor Carmichael, had orchestrated every detail of her 40th anniversary gala with militaristic precision, down to the napkin folds and lighting cues. She floated through the room in ice blue couture, soaking in admiration like it was oxygen. My father, Douglas, walked beside her, dignified and smug in equal measure, handshakes polished, compliments scripted. They were royalty here. This was their kingdom. And I was supposed to kneel at the altar of their perfection, take the mic, and deliver a tidy thank you speech. Instead, I was going to blow it up. Nathan and I arrived 15 minutes late, by design. All heads turned. I wore Olivia's custom crimson gown, the only bold color in a sea of muted pastels and black satin. My hair was swept into a regal twist, my heels clicked like thunder against the marble floor. Beside me, Nathan moved with effortless command, dressed in a sleek tuxedo that hinted at quiet power. Nothing like the forgettable man they thought they knew. I saw my mother's expression flicker when she spotted us. The smile froze, the eyes narrowed. So did my father's, who clocked Nathan's limited edition watch and whispered something to William Greer, the man who helped orchestrate my downfall. Let them whisper. As planned, William opened the evening with a grandiose toast. Tonight we celebrate not just a marriage, he declared, but a dynasty, built on integrity, perseverance, and family. My stomach churned, but I kept my smile fixed. My fingers rested on the flash drive hidden in my clutch. More speeches followed. Family friends, colleagues, carefully vetted praise, all reinforcing the Carmichael image. Then Eleanor stepped up to the microphone. She delivered her rehearsed gratitude like a seasoned actress accepting an award. "We've weathered challenges," she said, casting a pointed glance at me. "But we've emerged stronger, as families do, because love is unconditional, and forgiveness, vital." As she gestured toward me, the spotlight shifted. "And now," she said, "our daughter Juliette would like to say a few words." Applause rippled across the room as I walked to the mic. I looked out over the sea of faces, people who had judged me, discarded me, and in some cases, never even knew me beyond headlines and gossip. I took a deep breath. My heart raced. But my voice, when it came, was clear and steady. "Thank you, Mother, and congratulations." I paused, letting the room settle. "Tonight, we honor 40 years of love and partnership, a legacy built on family values, trust, and integrity." My mother beamed. My father nodded. They had no idea what was coming. That's why I want to talk about what happens when those values are weaponized. Gasps. The air shifted. Last year, I launched a boutique, Maison Jules. It was a dream I nurtured, built on real market data and a passion for emerging Southern designers. It thrived, until it didn't. I turned slowly toward Renee Caldwell, seated near my mother, face tightening. My business partner disappeared, taking nearly $300,000 and leaving me in public disgrace. What I didn't know at the time was that she wasn't a stranger. She was placed in my life by people I trusted. James, our security chief, activated the ballroom's main projection screens. Bank records appeared, showing wire transfers from Eleanor Carmichael's charitable foundation to shell companies connected to Renee Caldwell, 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after the boutique was destroyed. Murmurs erupted. Heads turned. "These documents show that my own mother funded the woman who sabotaged my business," I said. "That my father's advisor, William Greer, helped disguise her history of fraud. And that my failure wasn't due to incompetence, but by design." Renee stood, but James was already there, calmly blocking her path. She sat back down, face pale. And when I was at my lowest, stripped of my business, my finances, and my dignity, my parents offered a solution. I turned toward Nathan. A marriage, to a man they thought was ordinary. Someone who wouldn't challenge the narrative, someone who'd keep me tucked away and quiet. The audience held its collective breath. "But Nathan Bell is not a junior financial consultant." Gasps as the screens flashed again, this time showing news articles and financial data. "He is the founder and CEO of Bell and Ash Capital, one of the most successful private equity firms in the country, a man whose net worth exceeds this entire ballroom's combined." Nathan stepped forward, standing beside me. His presence changed the air. The silence was deafening. My mother rose, her voice sharp and brittle. "This is a performance," she said. "She's been manipulated. She's unstable." "No," I said, calm. I've been manipulated by you. My father clutched the table, his face reddening. This spectacle is truth, Nathan interrupted, and every piece of it is documented. If anyone here doubts it, you're welcome to review the full files. Kayla, my sister, stood then, walking to my side. She's telling the truth, she said quietly. I've seen the evidence. I heard William discussing the setup. I found Renee's fake IDs in Mom's files. The final blow. The golden younger daughter choosing me. My mother's face cracked. Not with tears, with fury. This is betrayal, she spat. No, I said. This is justice. I concluded the speech with my final slide, my original business plan, side by side with independent assessments confirming its viability. I was never a disgrace, I said. I was a threat to a legacy that depends on control, but I refused to be controlled any longer. Applause began hesitantly, then louder and louder. Some faces looked stunned, others guilty, a few proud. I stepped down from the stage. Nathan took my hand. Behind us, the Carmichael image, the dynasty they built, cracked like porcelain under truth. And I felt nothing but peace. The headlines the next morning said it all. Carmichael legacy shattered in anniversary revelation. Heiress Juliette Carmichael exposes parents in stunning gala speech. From arranged marriage to power move, the rise of Juliette Bell. My name was no longer synonymous with scandal or failure. It was now associated with resilience. What my parents had spent a lifetime curating, a spotless reputation, a dynasty polished to perfection, was dismantled in less than 24 hours. And unlike all the secrets they buried, my exposure came with receipts, proof, screenshots, deposits, names, and one carefully placed voice of quiet power beside me, Nathan. In the days that followed, Carmichael Group faced internal audits and regulatory scrutiny. Several board members issued statements calling for independent investigations into Douglas and William Greer's practices. William resigned 2 days after the gala. My mother was forced to step back from 3 charity boards, not because she was officially charged, but because reputation in her world is currency, and hers had just tanked. Our old social circle scattered. Some tried to stay neutral, others posted long, vague statements about choosing truth over tradition. A few reached out to me privately to say, I always believed in you, which would have meant more if I hadn't spent a year alone. But I wasn't bitter. I didn't need validation anymore. Phoebe moved out of Waverly House and into our old apartment, the beige one with popcorn ceilings and a stubborn dishwasher. It had been a prison for me, but for her, it was freedom. She redecorated already, Nathan told me, laughing. Plants everywhere, paint samples on the walls. There's a framed photo of the 3 of us under the Thai restaurant sign. My sister, who had once been our mother's shadow, was now an independent architect, launching her own sustainable design firm with Nathan's help and Grace's mentorship. She says she wants to design homes that make people feel like they belong, not like they're being measured. As for me, I moved with Nathan into his true residence, a minimalist penthouse overlooking Charleston Harbor. The views were stunning, but it wasn't the marble countertops or the designer lighting that took my breath away. It was the honesty, the way he kept the kitchen stocked with my favorite coffee, the photos of us on the hallway shelf, not for Instagram, but for us. The way he looked at me now, not like a mission, not like a project, but like a partner. We married again. This time, by choice. A private rooftop ceremony with 20 guests. No society page, no white gloves, no curated seating chart. Just Phoebe by my side, Grace officiating, and Olivia adjusting my silk jumpsuit moments before I walked down the aisle. Yes, a jumpsuit. Tailored, ivory, powerful. No veil, no pretense. Just truth. Nathan wore no tie, no mask. He said his vows simply, I saw strength in you when no one else did. Now I choose you, not for appearances or strategy, but because you are my home. And I said mine with a shaking voice but steady heart. I was raised to believe value came from legacy, but you taught me my worth lives in truth. I built something once. They tried to destroy it, but you helped me build again. And this time, it's mine. 3 months later, we launched Maison Juliette, reborn, rebranded, and backed by legitimate investment. With Grace as our advisor, Olivia as creative director, and a group of emerging designers from underserved regions, we turned a boutique into a movement. We offered more than retail. We offered equity shares to young creatives, workshops, mentorship, a designer incubator program that became the first of its kind in the Southeast. And this time, no one could take it from me. My relationship with my parents? It exists, but not as it did. Douglas sent an email titled Open to Dialogue, referencing misunderstandings and family healing. I responded, "Healing begins with accountability. I'm willing to talk, but not to pretend." My mother, in typical Eleanor fashion, sent a single handwritten note that read, "You looked lovely. The dress was bold. I'm not ready to discuss the rest, but I'm thinking of you. E." And for once, that was enough. I didn't need more, because I finally understood that some relationships are better loved from a distance. 1 year after the gala, Nathan and I celebrated our anniversary with no press, no fireworks, no cameras. We sat on our terrace, barefoot, eating pizza. "I never thought this is where I'd end up," I said, sipping wine. "Neither did I," he replied. "But it's the only place I ever want to be." We toasted not just to love, but to clarity, to choosing partners over performances, to building lives we actually lived in, and to every person who's ever been told they were too loud, too bold, too much. So if you're listening to this right now, and your family has tried to box you in, your failures have been weaponized, or someone tried to humble you out of fear of your power, hear me when I say this. You are not your mistakes. You are not their shame. You are not broken. Sometimes the life they try to trap you in is the one that sets you free. And sometimes the man they chose to keep you small becomes the one who helps you rise. This isn't the end of my story. It's just the authentic beginning.